the idea of the instructor being responsible for the learning outcome. So if I set up a course, what are you supposed to know by the end of the course? And how do I evaluate that you know what you're supposed to know at the end of the course? So it didn't matter whether I was in the Netherlands, where I went to school, or the UK or the US. In all of those instances, there was a very clear curriculum. There was a sense of scale for achievement, and there was a program of instruction. What I think has changed in some places more than others is the recognition that how you motivate the person has to be different. So even though the program of instruction, the learn outcomes and things like that are fairly persistent, the notion of how you define achievement, how you motivate achievement has changed. As far back as 1885, there's a German scholar called Hermann Ebbinghaus who conducted a set of experiments which have been reproduced and validated even today. And it suggests that when you pass information or knowledge onto someone, within the first day, they lose as much as 50%, even the smartest people. Wow. And by the end of a week, they've lost 90%. So what that means, therefore, is that motivating people to retain information, which some educational systems still persist, is increasingly coming up against the natural human instinct to discard useless information.
Right.
So my feeling of the matter is that that aspect is being recognized. And so different ways of getting you motivated other than retention is certainly improving. And that at least is different from what it was 30 years ago.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doc. Good evening, colleagues. So we've heard from our panelists, we've heard from our teachers. I think it's about time we heard from our students. So I want us to challenge ourselves and have this hard conversation. In light of all that we have heard this evening about the new way of thinking with respect to education, and looking at the educational ecosystem of PERSEC currently, do you as students see yourself as the center within which all other activities revolve to ensure that you acquire and gain the best within you? And number two, looking at where we are now and how Bright and Richardson have described how we have to go, do you think we are moving faster with you as a student and a beneficiary of all the knowledge? Do you think we are moving in that direction? Share your thoughts with us, because I'm going to ask Oge to also give us his perspective and relate it to when we were here. And then we can compare the two and contrast and ask ourselves whether we have made progress and how far we also need to go. So let me hear from you.
Okay, thank you very much. So speaking yesterday, I'm speaking on behalf of the students. And one thing I want us to understand is that, yes, your age, the age of mechanization, it served its purpose because you had to understand through a lot of things in order for you to work in that industry. But now we are approaching a world of digitalization. So I do not need to chew and pour. So as teachers are being told to have pedagogies that assimilates the students' differences, one thing we should also ask ourselves is that what is the reward for the student? What will push me to do what I am supposed to do to get that skills? Because if I am sitting in class and I study everything, I do group presentations, I learn the skills, but then the exams that will send me to the next academic level is based on the chew and pour things. My incentive will not be to learn how to express myself. My incentive will not be to learn how to work in a group. My incentive will be how I'm able to memorize these formulas in order for me to pass, in order for the consensus about me not to be me as a student, me being a failure. So we have to change the narrative where we ask ourselves that the presentations I'm doing, it's not just going to contribute to a 30% of my assessment, but it's going to hold a much bigger impact in whatever I am going to do. That will get me into the next stage. Then I will be willing to invest more energy into that, because that is what will make me a valuable resource for this country.
Great. I think he deserves a round of applause because he has really spoken from the point of the student and how you feel. It seems to me from what he's saying that we are still within the mechanical old way of learning and absorbing, because the focus is to pass the exam and not really to acquire the knowledge that will enable them to express themselves. That means we are not really moving the way we intend to move. Would that be the case, Richardson?
Well, from what you've submitted, I can only draw to, because, I only look to modern education through my children. And like I mentioned to you, the modern methods that have been introduced to have this approach where, to your point, attendance, making submissions, delivering work on time, participation, communication in class, making what you call debates. There's so many categories that have been defined towards your success. I also share something with you that stunned me. It was more of, if, for example, I'll use an example. I'm studying something in biology, photosynthesis. Once we have gone through the subject of photosynthesis, we get tested on it. Guess what? It never appears again. I don't think you understand what I mean. So if we studied photosynthesis for only a week and a half, we get a test at the end of the week, of that second week, and that's it. We're moving on to the next one. Occasionally, there are tests that are done to kind of see how much of it you've retained, but even the percentage there is a very minimum percent. And what you are putting in day by day, for a second I didn't understand what the attendance thing was about, where you score because you attended and participated. But they're trying to also build those interests in participation. You looked at the social, and then realizing that, look, you are here, you need to be part of it. So it's not all on the final exam, true, poor, pass, and forget. It's an aggregated, process from what I see they study from. So that's a little different from what you have now. But I'm very much aware that this is not within the control of PRESEC as we knew it back in the day, because the PRESEC we were in is not the PRESEC today. The PRESEC today has a government-wide, dictate on what, the measures are. So I guess that would be my response.
Doc.
Right, so still on this theme of student-centered learning, let me share a warning by one of the world's leading educational thought leaders, Yang Zhao. And he is an academic and a distinguished scholar who focuses on globalization and the effects of technology on education. And I'd like our teachers to share their take on this. He wrote a book, and it's titled, Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Dragon? National standards and national curriculum, enforced by high-stakes testing, can at best teach students what is prescribed. As a result, students talented in other areas never have the opportunity to discover those talents. Students with broader interests are discouraged, not rewarded. The system results in a population with similar skills in a narrow spectrum of talents. But especially in today's society, where innovation and creativity are needed, and where many areas are yet undiscovered, this is a challenge. To what extent do we agree with this scholar's warning to us about how we rigidly enforce national standards and curricula through the way we test students, and whether or not we pay attention to the broad range of talents that students actually possess? So any of our teachers can take this. or even the students can weigh in whether or not they agree with this assertion. And maybe Bright, you can also come in whether this is a warning that we need to heed as he talks about the dangers.
I will want to just say something briefly, then Mr. Alabi will maybe add one or two words.
Sure.
To some extent, I agree with him in the sense that you heard Richardson mention that some of these situations is not emanating from PRESEC.
Right.
We are following a curriculum that has been designed at the national level, and our students here are going to compete at the end of their studies here with other students from other institutions who are also following the same curriculum. And so in order not to get them disadvantaged, we also follow suit. However, there are certain things that I would say we also introduce here, that one way or the other, if the students are to focus and to participate in them, it will help them get some talent developed in addition to whatever is prescribed. Right. For instance, in PRESEC, per our regulations, it is mandatory for every student to belong to a club or a society.
Wow.
And by belonging to that, there are so many things that goes on there that you have to learn. That will be the extracurricular activity that you may learn from. Bright made mention of the fact that when he was here, he belonged to the Writers and Debaters Club. He was also the SRC president. By dint of hard work and he participating in the activities here and there, he developed certain skills like communication, among others. We do have students who are very good. They have developed eloquence through some of these clubs and society. Some students have also become very innovative because they belong to robotics club and other societies. That we do have Zoom Alliance club, if I am right. They have become so innovative. They design waste bins, and they also help us collect the plastic waste on campus. They gather them, and then other companies will come for them one way or the other. Some students develop even certain items out of the waste products. It is only when the students refuse to partake in some of these clubs and societies that the school, which is PRESEC, has also prescribed, in addition to the national curriculum, that they may be at a disadvantage. But should they participate in some of these groups, one way or the other, it will help them. We have people who belong to, students who belong to the PRESEC, I call them the Blue Magic Band. They develop their skill and improve their skill of playing the instruments here and there. Some also lead praises here and there. Some belong to the school choir. And by so doing, they are also developing their skills. Right. We have the media team who are also developing a skill other than the prescribed curriculum. So that's why I said, to some extent, I agree with him, and to some other extent too, PRESEC has developed its own ways and means of adding on to what the national curriculum has designed.
Right. So I'd like to get a student's perspective here as well and find out from my younger brothers who are here. Do you feel, as you go through the educational system, do you feel that your talents are being nurtured? Those, or do you feel you are being shackled? That if you have broader talents beyond what is prescribed, do you feel that the educational system actually nurtures those talents beyond the, for want of a better expression, the rigid curriculum? I just want your opinion, your take on it.
All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and speak on this topic. I want to first begin by saying that I am glad that it was mentioned during the course of the discussion that students are the main beneficiaries of education, and as such, education should be student-centered. It was also mentioned in one of the presentations, the theory of multiple intelligences, implying that there are several areas in which intelligence can be expressed. It is not merely a matter of computational thinking. So with regards to that, I do believe that the way in which assessment of student ability and the way in which competence is assigned or ascribed to students is fundamentally flawed. That being said, there are other advents through which we as students are given opportunities to express our talents. I just do believe that these advents are not enough. And there is the need for these advents to be expanded, and the role of student talents aside from computational thinking and reasoning to be emphasized in order to ensure that we can create a future where our students do not merely have the theory within their heads, but it translates to actual skills which they can bring out to develop the world.
Wonderful, thank you.
Great,
I think we
great,
can go
great,
to the next.
great insights. He deserves a round of applause, doesn't he? Now, I think from the conversation so far, you'd agree with me that it does appear that the school is also doing quite well in applying extracurricular activity to the national curriculum so that they can balance skill sets in addition to the learning. Now, this is what I'm thinking. There is this narrative, and it is true, that there's a disconnect between the expectation of the industry against the outputs that are going out, right? Now, at the tertiary level, we see industry making an attempt to come to the classroom at the faculty to imbibe some practical knowledge at the tertiary level. Do you think, teachers and panelists, that it's about time we consider bringing these industry experts down to the classroom at the senior high school level to begin to imbibe in them the expectation out there in the real world? And I say so because with the rising and the fast development of the AI and the Internet of Things, do you think it is an area that we need to marry industry and classroom right from the senior high school level, even before they get to tertiary, so their skills and the potentials will be harnessed? Is this something that is doable? Right, maybe you can take, and then our teachers who hold the national curriculum can also tell us if it is doable.
Hello, is this working? Okay. No, certainly it's obvious that exposing young people at this formative age to the workplace that they will be going into eventually makes all the sense in the world. I talk a lot about experiential learning. I also have a view that, and this is my personal view, I don't know whether it's backed by research. The way our brains work is we acquire cognitive capacity